All righty. Good evening. Welcome to the September 17th Village Board meeting. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Present.
Yep. Trustee Bazemore.
Present.
Trustee Herrera.
Present.
Trustee Levin.
Excuse me, present.
Mayor Garrity.
Present.
We'll begin this evening with mayor's and trustees' announcements.
Does anybody else have announcements?
No announcements.
Yes.
Please, go right ahead.
Okay. So I asked the public to please join me in commemorating the start of Hispanic Heritage Month as we celebrate the contributions, the legacy, the heritage and culture of the Hispanic community in Ossining, the county, state, and country. Join me in really just stepping aside and just saying thank you for a community that has made Ossining what it is today, and is one of the communities that keeps us going and thriving. One of the many. So happy Hispanic Heritage Month. 2 event announcements. Tomorrow, Tuesday, September 18th, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., the Ossining NAACP is hosting a community summit on prosecutorial misconduct and holding elected officials accountable at the Ossining Public Library. And this Friday, Galata House and the Bryant Youth Alliance will be having their their family fun night and music festival at Nelson Park. And I believe that's in the evening, so that's about it. Thank you.
Trustee Levin, did you have any comments or announcements?
Nope, thank you.
All right, then I will make reference to what is obvious to some. If you may have seen some bright green bicycles around the community. We are now in the third day of the Lime Bikes pop-up. Lime Bikes is a bike sharing program. It's a dockless bike sharing program. The first bike sharing program I was aware of in our region was in New York City, and they have the city bikes, and there's certain places where you dock them. Lime Bikes has a different approach, and it's already in place in a number of municipalities in the country, and then specifically here in Westchester. You can see it in White Plains and elsewhere. If you have a smartphone, then you can download the Lime Bikes app. The first ride is free, and that'll be going on through this weekend. I believe through Sunday they're going to come pick them up, or Saturday?
Actually, going to pick them up on Monday.
Okay. So you still have a few days that you can try it out, see how it works. That's a great thing about the pop-up is that we can we had a bunch of questions. The board did. I wasn't even there that night. Thank you for everybody for raising a bunch of questions. So thank you for Trustee Bazemore for making the point. Yeah, we have a bunch of questions, and that's the great thing about a pop-up is we can figure out a little bit during this week while we're trying it out, and then see if there's an interest and a logic to moving forward, and we'll have a better starting point for that conversation. Now, the Lime Bikes pop-up is coinciding with Car Free Day, which is a global effort, and that is happening this Friday, September 21st. We are in a competition with other communities in our area that are getting people to take the Car Free or Car Light pledge. So if you would, it's on social media, it's in the email that I sent out today, but if you're, just go online and look for Car Free Day Hudson Valley, and there's a pledge that you can take. And the real benefit of going to that website is not just to help with our numbers in the competition against other municipalities to have the most people who pledge to go car free, but it really is as a resource to give you ideas. Because obviously there's the Beeline bus, but that is limited in its access. But there are other options. This program is being organized primarily by 511 New York Rideshare, which is part of the New York State DOT, and they have a rideshare program, and that's really worth looking into. It's a carpooling connection program, and it's a little more. The more I learn about it, the more I realize I'm not the best person to explain it. So please go on the 511 New York Rideshare website and learn more about it. See if it's something that might make sense for you. If you drive to work in the same place every day or regularly, it might be something you want to participate in. And then this Friday would be a good time to check it out, to help you to help us reduce the number of single-user vehicles that are on the road this Friday. Thursday, I'll put on my documentary and discussion series hat for a moment. This Thursday, September 20th at 6:30 p.m., please join the Ossining Documentary and Discussion Series at the Ossining Public Library. It is free to attend. The name of the film is Capturing the Flag. The subject is about voter suppression. It's going to be a really interesting film followed by a very engaging panel discussion with some folks, one of whom is one of the producers of the film and one of the subjects of the film that has volunteered in regions of our country where there has been a significant voter suppression, and the other is an attorney who, for the last 2 presidential cycles, has worked in Ohio with their with various boards of elections, dealing with similar concerns. And prior to that, she was with the Obama campaign the first time he ran. So, and then we're looking for somebody locally. We had to make a little change there so we can learn more, have questions answered specifically about what happens here in Westchester County. So 6:30 this Thursday at the Ossining Public Library. Madam Clerk.
We'll move into, no more notes, okay. So we'll move into administrative reports. Village Manager Deborah McDonald.
Thank you very much. I have 3 things, but I'm going to start with Tom Warren, our village treasurer. He has an announcement to make regarding the recent sale of the bonds.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Board of Trustees. This is sort of like my annual visit with the board during a department head meeting or a department head presentation at the legislative meeting to talk about our annual bond sale, which actually happened last week. During the past couple of months, the Finance Department has been working on the official statement, which is like a bond prospectus to potential investors to tell them about who we are and what we're borrowing for. We were selling this year serial bonds of about $4.7 million and also a refunding bond of about $6.1 million. I'd actually come back to the board back in February to tell you about the opportunity to call in the 2007 and 2010 serial bonds and refund them, actually sell new bonds to pay off the old bonds, sort of like a mortgage refinancing in order to save money. And then we also issued a bond anticipation note of just over $2.3 million for vehicles, equipment, and capital improvements. The bonds were mostly to pay off the bond anticipation notes from last year of about over $2 million. So we'd also issued new monies for the Broadway Bridge. We issued a bond for $2 million, and also the fire engine pumper, $675,000. And on the bond anticipation note, mostly it was for the Broadway Bridge for another $600,000 just for the cash flow purposes, and also phase 1 and 2 of engineering services on the new Indian Brook water treatment plant. And when we go out to bond on that project, those BANs will be converted to serial bonds at that time. So in conjunction with this proposed bonds and the band sale, we prepared for our almost annual review of village finances by Moody's. We actually didn't have one last year because last year we only issued the BANs, the notes, and it wasn't cost effective to actually pay for a bond rating on those notes. So we just sold the notes based on our existing bond rating at that time of AA2. But because we were selling bonds of over $10 million, and actually you had to have a bond rating for anything over $1 million. So we were preparing for the review with Moody's. Our team included Village Manager Debbie McDonald, Director of Planning and Development Tracy Corbett, Town Assessor Fernando Gonzalez, my Deputy Treasurer Dale Ferreira, and myself. And the bond rating process included an examination of the following factors: economy and tax base, finances, management matters, and debt and capital projects. And our call lasted about 45 minutes. The interesting thing is that they actually send us the questions ahead of time that they really want to focus on in these categories. And as I found out from our fiscal advisor, we're one of the few local governments that actually provide written responses to these questions in advance of the ratings call with Moody's. And I like to do that because otherwise we're depending upon the Moody's analyst to take notes and bring back accurate information to the committee meeting that actually makes the rating. This way I kind of feel that we actually have a voice at the committee meeting because we're actually providing written answers that they can refer to, and it actually shows that we're doing a very credible and diligent job. And then that also allows the Moody's analysts to actually, go beyond these basic questions and delve into some more additional areas. Debbie, would you like to add anything about our Moody's call?
I thought it was a really interesting call, and it was so great to be able to talk about the positive things happening in the village, and they were very excited about the village board's forethought in things like upgrading the water treatment plant and repairing our bridges and investing dollars into our infrastructure. So, that's a huge kudos to all of you for what you've done. And it was an interesting call for me just to learn about how they view Ossining. But I think that we're sitting in a great position, and Tom and his crew have done a wonderful job of putting together the financial reports for that.
And also, of course, they're always very interested in upcoming developments. So we had a lot to talk to them about in regards to that. Last Tuesday, Moody's Investor Service reconfirmed the village's very high credit rating of AA2 on new and existing debt. They did say that this rating reflects the village's stable financial operations with healthy reserve levels, moderately sized tax base, average wealth levels, and manageable debt burden. And as I talked about in the past, the AA2 is in the AA category, which is reflective of high quality debt subject to very low credit risk. So I'm happy to still be in that rating. We've had this AA2 rating since 2009 when Moody's had recalibrated the ratings, and at that time it had increased us from just an A1 bond rating. So with the bond rating in hand, then we actually opened the bids last Thursday. We had received 4 bids on the 20-year serial bond with true interest rates ranging between 3.107 and 3.189%, which is a very tight grouping of bids. The low bid of 3.107 was accepted and awarded. On the refunding bond, we actually received 5 bids with a very close rates of between 2.51 and 2.69 true interest rate for the remaining 13 years on those bonds. And we actually received 7 bids on the BAN, the one-year note. Most of the bids were relatively grouped between 2.2% and 3%, but we actually had one very low bid of 1.68%. And that was actually from Sterling National Bank, which is one of our banking partners. And when I talked to the government banking representative, she said that they just wanted to show appreciation for the business relationship that they have with the village. So, with these very low interest rates, the village is going to save money in the budget, and especially on this bond anticipation note. And with regards to the refunding bond, when I came and approached the board about this refunding opportunity, at the time our fiscal advisor thought that the savings would be about $350,000 over the 13 years. And when we actually went out and sold the bonds, we're actually going to save $497,000 over the 13 years, which is generally about $40,000 each year for the next 5 years. So it was a very good week this past week and the week before.
Please.
Tom, do you have like an estimation of what every 100 basis points means on our portfolio?
Yes, for a serial bond, I used to go with a rule of $65,000 per $1 million borrowed. I think now it might be closer to $55,000 with the lower interest rates.
Okay, so, I mean, this is great news, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you guys did a great job. It's interesting that Sterling would do that, so that's great.
Yes, they're
Um,
already,
That's great.
you know, I don't know, it seems like they're subsidizing our operations because they send a courier every day to pick up the money, and there's no charge for that. So this was certainly unexpected.
Sounds like my phone, but I don't think I have my phone with me, so it can't be me. Anyway, this is great. Could you just send me the list of the criteria they use? I'm just sort of interested. So I heard infrastructure, I heard the water, you know, so you don't have to, oh, you have it with you? I just want to see what the criteria was that they're using, so thank you.
Well, they don't tell us the actual criteria for evaluating. They send us a list of questions in the different categories, like the, you know, the capital projects,
Right.
Economy, tax base, things like that. And, you know, I'll be glad to send the questions.
But you're extrapolating based on that, sort of the directions and things that they're thinking about? Because you just stated it 5 minutes ago.
Right. It was, the ratings rationale was based on the economy, and in that, they actually asked a lot of questions about upcoming development in the village. For debt and capital projects, they actually asked about current projects and how we anticipate financing these projects. And in that, we talked quite a bit about the upcoming water filtration plant capital project. And we also had talked about what happened last year when, instead of issuing serial bonds for the capital projects in the 2018 budget, that we had made a conscious decision to use fund balance to pay for the vehicles and such in the 2018 budget. I think there's about $750,000 that we had avoided issuing debt for, and how it's, you know, actually, you know, in our minds, you know, a smart use of excess fund balance, you know, to spend excess fund balance on one-time recurring expenditures. And we also talked about some of the other operating expenditures in the 2018 budget, like the police department training, the bias training that they had, that was a one-time use of fund balance in the 2018 budget. Also, they asked about issuing additional debt in the next 3 to 5 years, and of course that was the water filtration plant. And then they asked specific questions about the 2017 operations and how we ended up with a fund balance at the end of the year. We talked about, you know, certain types of expenses that actually were lower, like the health insurance and the workers' comp in 2017. And we also talked about some of the major revenues, such as sales tax and the mortgage tax that was received in 2017. We talked about appropriation fund balance, and then we talked about the 2018 budget, and they even asked if we had, you know, they started to wonder what was going on for the 2019 budget, which is, you know, just in the very preliminary stages. And then they asked about the status of union contracts and things like that.
Your first one, right? Is this your first run?
This is my first one in this community, but I've done it before, sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I have 2 other things. Today, I attended the Mid-Hudson Region Economic Development Council quarterly meeting, and they were announcing the priority projects that they were recommending to the state, to the governor for financing. It's the first step in a 2-step process. There are also recommendations made by all of the funding agencies that we apply to. But I'm happy to report that our water treatment green roof is on the priority list. at 1.3 million. So that is not funding, so anyone who's listening to this does not mean we were awarded the money. It just means that we're on a priority list for the governor's office for consideration. We should find out late fall if we are awarded these funds. Any other grants that we applied for, we do not have an answer on yet, but just because we're on the priority for this one grant does not preclude us from receiving any of the other grants as well. So I just wanted to let everyone know that I thought that was really good to see that our water treatment plant is on that list. I also want to announce that Jamie Hoffman is working on a list of board and committee openings that we have, and I really want to drive our residents and anyone who's listening to go online and look at all the different boards and committees. It will list out how many openings we have on each of them. And we do have an immediate need for someone on the zoning board. We did have a resignation. George Bailing had to resign October 15th. So if anyone is interested in the zoning board, please go online and apply. There's an online app, or it's not an app, it's a click. Okay,
It's not an app, it's an actual application.
It's an application, but if you just go online and fill it out, ask you some very basic questions about how long you've been here and your interest in serving our community. So for all the other boards and committees, we are looking for appointments in January and February.
I thought that the EAC was going to also be an exception because they can't have a quorum.
We barely have a quorum.
Well, no, actually, oh, right. Well, somebody's also on maternity, sort of having a child, and is not able to attend. So I thought we also said that we would do an EAC and not wait to January. Am I wrong about that?
I can list it as an immediate opening.
So that they can have, and Jeff happens to be here, I don't think, representing the EAC in this
Right.
purpose, but he's still the chair and.
Okay. So
If
I
you
can
don't
make sure
mind.
that those two that
The
we put on there-
Environmental Advisory Council.
Correct.
And I'll point out to folks, there's different requirements for residency for all of the boards and committees. The land use boards, zoning board in particular, and I believe the Environmental Advisory Council, where we have these two immediate openings, you do have to be a village resident. You don't have to be a voter. You don't have to be a citizen. We just want you to live in our community. Some of the others, there's more flexibility, like if there's an opening on the Arts Council, you can just have a strong connection to Ossining. You might, live in the unincorporated town and have kids that go here and feel very connected to your community, and you want to be considered for serving on a committee. So please take a look. Don't assume that you cannot serve in some way. We really want to involve anybody who cares deeply about our community to raise their hand and apply for some of these positions.
Great. So the applications we're accepting anytime between now and the end of the year. I do believe the village board and myself would be interviewing candidates in November, early December. The appointment for each of them would either be January 1 or February 1, depending on the committee. So, we're excited to have residents be a part of this. It's so important to serve your community and have a voice. So I hope people will go online and look at the requirements and hopefully sign up to participate. And that's all they have.
Thank you.
Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Good evening, members of the board. A few announcements tonight. Put that back there. It's just getting kind of loud, and it's going to reverberate. We have 3 resolutions tonight regarding local laws that are being adopted. Local Law 5, which is the amendment to the Housing and Property Maintenance Code. And we talked about that at a number of prior meetings. Village manager, the building inspector, and I will be meeting in terms of the procedures to follow with regard to instituting that, because there are certain requirements that will go into effect, particularly with regard to vacant buildings and vacant commercial structures. Vacant building registry will be created, and so those are things that we have to, start the practice of. We will try to notify those owners who will be directly and immediately impacted by the effect of that legislation. The other 2 legislations, 2 local laws, relate to parades for in terms of the application process, and for the one-day cabaret licenses, which will go into effect. A few other things. We do have we do have a resolution tonight to call for a public hearing with regard to the notification by Ferncliff Manor for their intent to open a community home at 64 Revolutionary Road. That public hearing is scheduled for the 3rd of October. Notification will be going out to all residents who are within 300 feet of that house. In addition, it will be published in the Gazette. We're on a very tight deadline because the state imposes a very tight deadline for this, basically 40 days from our receipt of the notification. The village has to either agree, provide an alternative location, or disagree. If the village does nothing, it simply proceeds as scheduled. I've already been in contact with the attorney for Ferncliff Manor as well as the executive director for Ferncliff Manor, and they will, in addition to be appearing at the October 3rd public hearing, representatives from Ferncliff Manor will be at next week's planning board session on the 25th of the month to answer questions from the planning board with regard to this particular application that they have filed. So if folks want to attend that meeting as well, it's a public hearing, and they're certainly welcome to attend that. Just a few other items. We are at the time of year where a lot of signs start popping up in the village, not just election signs, but signs for garage sales or, sign if someone wants to pick up a piano or something like that. I don't know why I thought about that. But in any event, we've seen them for some reason on my block. And a couple of things to note. While the village code does not explicitly restrict placement of signs within the right-of-way, it's important to note that if they are considered a nuisance, they can be removed. The most obvious example of that is if someone has a sign which sort of gives a direction, sort of points in a particular direction, and someone thinks it's actually a street sign directing them somewhere. You shouldn't have something like that. The village code also does not specifically mention anywhere political signs or signs for election. The only place where it does is under handbills, and there's a section there dealing with when handbills have to be removed. Generally, a handbill, if it has for a particular event, must be removed after that event occurs. Similar with an election, has to be removed after the election occurs. A few other things to note. That if you're dealing with handbills or anything like that, you can't use any adhesive or gummed adhesive to attach it to the fence pole, to anything like that. You may not attach it to trees at all. That's completely not permitted under the village code. The code is very clear that if it's affixed to any bridge, fence, pole, post, sidewalk, or it says tree here, which it actually should not, or the exterior of any structure, it should be removed within 24 hours of the event, as I have said to you, and it can only be up to 30 days. So basically, that's the time frame. Again, it's just for handbills. If folks have questions about particular signs, particularly temporary signs, which do require a permit, they can contact the building department, which will give you that information. Other information about signs is all contained within the village's zoning code. That's just, important to note there. Finally, I did receive communication today from Assistant Commissioner Guy Alba of the State Division of Homes and Community Renewal. He is in receipt of the village's resolution. One thing he has requested from the village is a data sheet, hopefully in Excel format, which will indicate all ETPA subject buildings containing addresses, owner information, mailing address, as well as the number of units that are involved, so a total unit count, so they can start their process. What the Assistant Commissioner indicated is that they are now in the process of formulating a transition plan for the village. They'll provide it to us once they have it, but he has also, I asked him certain questions that I've received from both owners and tenants. Those have been forwarded to the legal unit for HCR, but one thing that he did indicate is that since the resolution was effective the date it was passed, September the 5th, the Westchester County Rent Guidelines Board increase of 2% for one-year leases, that went into effect on October 1st. So if folks are signing rent renewals effective October 1st, and they're in an ETPA-eligible building, it would be 2% for a one-year lease, 3% for a two-year lease. They'll be guided by that. And he just, wanted me to, to advise him of that. As to which units are ultimately going to be ETPA eligible, that will be a determination to be made by the state, once that goes through. But I did want the board to know that we've heard from the Assistant Commissioner. His office is in Jamaica, Queens. He is now in receipt of that. He's also, as I said, communicating with his Legal Services and Research Unit to prepare the plan to start the next phase of the transition.
Thank you.
Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Good evening. September is Hunger Action Month, so this month the police department's been involved with a number of programs to try and, wow, that just got louder all of a sudden, to try and work with Feeding Westchester, who is not only run by one of our local residents, but also has a pretty heavy impact on our community. So during the month of September, we're doing a non-perishable food drive in the police station, which is great. We've had to clean that box out 3 or 4 times now, so we are doing really, really well with donations. We're grateful for the generosity of all of our residents, and we ask people to continue doing that throughout the month. In order to highlight some of the great work that we do, that they do rather, our officers have been working with them. So we've been doing distribution days with the mobile food pantry that actually delivers food to our residents. And then a bit out of order, we're going to be volunteering next week at Feeding Westchester down in Elmsford to do a repack day, which is where the food that has been donated is sorted and ready to go back out. So we're trying to get the whole circle there. We got a little bit out of order, but we're going to touch all the bases on that one. So Hunger Action Month continues, and we ask people to continue their donations and keep an eye on all the stuff that we're doing, because it sort of shows people where exactly your donations go, that it's not just an anonymous gift. It's actually something that comes right back to our community here. On law enforcement front, we are cycling into our fall training session. So this month we're going to be conducting second half firearms qualification, as well as putting the entire department through a multi-jurisdictional patrol skill evolution, where we're going to be working with the Village of Croton to get all of our officers together so we can make sure that we're all on the same page and have similar tactics, so that when we have the ability or the opportunity to have to work with another job, that everybody sort of understands one another. Looking forward, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so we're going to be doing a number of events for there. There'll be a collection there. There's going to be some videos coming out and possibly a panel discussion, but we'll talk about that later once that's ready to broadcast. And we're getting ready now for our Halloween Spooktacular. This will be our 3rd or 4th year now, so keep an eye out for that. And for those of you fitness fanatics, the PBA 5K is going to be on October 20th. You can sign up for that now, and if you sign up for, there's an additional race that you can run there, Chase the Chief, where you can run against me for other fun and games and prizes. If you're wondering where you stand against me, I ran Ossining Matters the other day, and I came in at 24:47, so that is your challenge time, and that's all we've got for today. Thanks.
I noticed there was no Chase the Trustee.
No, but I will,
Yeah, lots of money would be made there.
yeah, but my kids give the chief a run for his money there.
They both beat me, didn't run for mine.
Yeah, they beat their mother by all of the 5K, so. Thank you.
Organization announcements.
I think we have, yeah.
Yes, please, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Miriam Haas, 17 Westview Avenue. I wanted to invite the community to our 2nd annual studio tour, where you can go from, we give you a map, it's free. We're printing the maps now, we're not quite ready, but it's on October 13th, and you can go to about, you can see about 21 different artists in many different homes and locations. Some of them you can see at the Ossining Arts Council, which is right on Main Street. We also have it at the Cedar Lane Arts Center. A whole bunch of artists are there, and then we have some studios that are open. So it's the 13th from 11 to 4, but there's also something new this year. We teamed up with Bethany Arts Center, and we're doing a preview. So on October 5th from 7 to 9, you can see one piece from each of the artists, and let's say you like this person's art, you say, I'm going to start at this person's house next week. So the preview's on October 5th, and the art's going to be up there for a week, and then the following Saturday is the tour. And this is our 2nd annual one. Last year we had about 200 people take the tour, and there were a lot of people from out of town, so it was really nice, and everyone stopped into the coffee shop and First Village and the First Choice Kitchen and all over, all the different restaurants, Karma Lounge. So we think it's going to be a great year, second year. Thank you for letting me speak for 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. It is a really wonderful program, and I look forward to this year's again. Any other
Anyone else?
announcements?
Okay. Village Board resolutions. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on any of the resolutions this evening?
Good evening, Board. My name is Catherine Crossling. Most of you know me. I am elected to the Ossining Board of Education. I'm absolutely not here in my capacity tonight as a Board of Education trustee. I am here as a resident of Yorktown who used to live in Ossining Village for about 8 years. And I actually still manage the Friends of Sherwood Avenue Facebook page, so I'm still very connected with some of my neighbors, especially the neighbors off of Croton Avenue. And it was actually almost a year ago, if you can believe it, that I spoke to you with a group of concerned citizens from that area about the erotic massage parlors that seem to pop up in town. And I am here tonight to talk about resolution of local law number 5. It is not an anti-erotic massage parlor law. As you know, our group had proposed some much stronger language, which the village has not adopted, which I understand the reasons why. I do think that there are provisions of local law 5 that can be interpreted to help in the fight against some of those types of businesses that the residents made clear they don't want here. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank the board for their hard work, and that I really appreciate it, and many others do as well. I also, just as an aside to that issue, I happen to come from a dedication of the courtyard at the high school by Ossining Padres Hispanos, and they learned that I was coming over here, and they're very excited about the Heritage Festival, and I agree to pass on their enthusiasm to you. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to address the board on any of the resolutions? We'll move into board resolutions. Approval of minutes, September 12th, 2018, special meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter B, approval of voucher detail, September 19th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter C, adoption of proposed local law 5, a local law amending Chapter 162 Housing Property Maintenance and Building Code Administration of the Village of Ossining Code. This is a, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is anybody on the board that would like to comment on this? There's a lot in it. We've talked about it a lot, but if you'd like to comment, now would be the time. Okay. Well, I'll
This
just...
is a roll call vote?
It is, but before we take the vote, I just want to point out, this is the legislation that Ms. Crossling was just referencing, and it is, thank you very much, Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahn, for doing so much work to get us to this point, because it is a lot of updates addressing a lot of the challenges that we have that are really intransigent code enforcement challenges up to this point. I'm very grateful that we have some new staff members that have come on board with the building department to have the staff ready to be able to enforce these codes, and I know that that's an ongoing process, and we look forward to seeing the building department continue to get stronger and in more able to proactively move forward with the code enforcement concerns that we have here. And it includes updates, everything, including addressing becoming more involved and proactively aware of new businesses that are looking to open in the village, and we will also be using that as an opportunity to welcome new businesses into the village and to make sure they have all of the accurate information that they need to be able to have a smooth opening, as well as making sure that the businesses that are opening are appropriate businesses to be opening in our community. The vacant properties which Corporation Counsel referenced before, we are optimistic we'll make some, even 1 or 2 buildings changing their appearance could do a lot for the quality of life and the appearance of some of our neighborhoods where we've seen some vacant buildings that are frustratingly not changing hands for various reasons, but that doesn't mean that they should look unappealing to the community, as well as safety concerns. And this is everything that we do in code enforcement is the underlying concern is making sure that we have buildings that are safe in our community. So the rebuttable defenses is one of the items in here, correct?
Yes.
Which was borrowed from Sleepy Hollow, which is one of the challenges in being able to proactively address overcrowded housing concerns is gaining access to a property, particularly the smaller properties, the 1, 2, 3 family buildings that are not subject to the triannual fire inspection. And I'm not alone in having received emails from folks saying, but I can see all of these things. They're so obvious that there must be too many people in this property. And so this is we now have a provision that allows us to go to the property owner and seek that they must explain why there are these indicators that seem inconsistent with the number of units that are intended to be in that property, and that allows us to have a stronger pathway to addressing any overcrowded housing, which leads to some really unsafe conditions for folks living there and in the neighboring properties. So those are some of the big things that we're updating. It's a long time coming. It has been a lot of work from our legal team, and it's going to be a lot of work from our building department to be implementing it. So thank you very much to everybody who's been making this happen, and I look forward to it moving forward. Madam Clerk.
This is a roll call vote. Trustee Bazemore?
Aye.
Trustee Levin?
Aye.
Trustee Herrera?
Aye.
Mayor Garrity?
Aye.
Letter D, adoption of proposal local law 6, 2018, a local law amending chapter 100 cabarets of the Village of Ossining Code. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
This is also a roll call vote.
Really? Wow.
It's a law.
Trustee Bazemore?
Aye.
Trustee Levin?
Aye.
Trustee Herrera?
Aye.
Mayor Garrity?
Aye.
Letter E, adoption of proposed local law 8, a local law amending chapter 186 parades of the Village of Ossining. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
Trustee Bazemore?
Aye.
Trustee Levin?
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
Trustee Herrera?
Aye.
Mayor Garrity?
Aye. I don't know, this might be a record, passing 3 laws in one night. That's pretty good.
Letter F, Litigation Settlement Authority, Liberty Mutual Insurance Company, ASO, Anna Tejera and Manuel Tejera versus Village of Ossining. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ooh, it's a bug. Okay. Letter G, resolution adopting the Village of Ossining Board of Ethics recommendations regarding complaints 1-2018 and 2-2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter H, call for a public hearing notification by Ferncliff Manor Incorporated to establish a community residential home at 64 Revolutionary Road, Ossining, New York. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board?
This is the resolution to call for a public hearing, not actually voting on.
Oh, no, it's the public hearing, which will be October 3rd. That's all this
Okay.
is.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter I, Fire Department appointment, Ossining Fire Police and Emergency Squad. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I understand we're going through this a little faster than we usually do. We have a lengthy agenda here. But in this case, there are actual residents in our community who are,
you like me to read
stepping
the
up and
resolution?
volunteering. I think it'd be nice if we read
Okay.
the fire resolutions.
Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Fire Chief, Sheila Crimmins, Ossining, New York, was elected to active membership of the Ossining Fire Police and Emergency Squad as Fire Police Officer. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Letter J, Fire Department Appointment, Washington Hook and Ladder Company Number 2, resolved that upon recommendation of the Fire Chief, Wilberto Reyes, Austin, New York, was elected to active membership of the Washington Hook and Ladder Company Number 2 for interior firefighting at their monthly meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter K, resolution approving the application by Ossining Padres Hispanos for a permit to hold a Hispanic Heritage Festival on September 30th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board?
Yes, I'm very excited that a newly formed group of Ossining has mobilized themselves and taken on the big task of coordinating what could be an event that could attract thousands of people to Ossining, including our own residents, in honor of a month that is really celebrated and embraced by so many in the community. So I look forward to attending, and I want to thank Ossining Padres Hispanos and La Comunidad Hispana, which is their board, for the application and hosting the event this year.
Yes, I'm really pleased about this. We have some cultural festivals, and this is the first time that the Hispanic Heritage Festival, to my knowledge, is going to be taking place here. Thank you to the Village Management Office and to the Police Department for working with Ana Guzman and her coordinators to make this happen. It should be an exciting program. Everything that starts off new usually continues to grow year after year, so I wish them the very best of luck in their first year, and I look forward to attending this year and for many years ahead. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter L, resolution amending the village procurement policy, adding the Educational Service Commission of New Jersey, and authorizing the village to join the ESCNJ Cooperative Purchasing Network. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? This is something we discussed last week. It provides us with another source for being able to get good pricing on some of our purchases. I'm very pleased to be able to give us just more options to save money on the things that we need for village government. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter M, resolution declaring vehicle as surplus and authorizing disposal. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter N, resolution in opposition to proposal plans, to propose plans for coastal storm risk management without sufficient study or community participation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Okay, this is a lengthy one, so I'm not going to ask you to read it, but I would encourage folks in the community to read this and particularly the resources that are available from Riverkeeper. Last week, we had a presentation from Jennifer Benson with Riverkeeper, who she was able to identify get us up to speed on what the proposals are that are being recommended by the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as the approach that is being taken in these studies. There are 5 proposals, more or less. None of them take into account climate change, sea level rise, science. So we are very interested in having our voice heard. We're making a very clear statement here of what we believe is the most forward-thinking approach that will benefit our community as a Hudson River community for generations going forward. And we are joining in with how many other West Hudson River communities have already passed resolutions? 14 others will be the 15th to pass resolutions. And I understand that they had already changed the deadline from an August date to a September date, and they have now changed it to an October date, or to a November date, November 5th. So please if this is something you are concerned about, if you care about the health of the Hudson River, if it matters to you for recreation purposes, for economic development, just because you like to go and take a walk by the river, please go to the Riverkeeper website. They have a lot of information there. You can learn how to send a letter, to have your voice heard, have your concerns expressed, and the thoughtfulness that has gone into our resolution tonight is very similar to resolutions passed by other municipalities, and it is crafted for us by our Corporation Council with a lot of input from Riverkeeper and from the other municipalities. And I want to thank Sandy Galiff as well, our Assemblywoman, who as soon as she heard about it, she was the very first state elected official who reached out to all of the Hudson River communities that she represents and got us up to speed, and then we were able to bring that information to the village board and village government. So I'm really pleased that the village is taking a strong position on this, and I want to be sure everyone in the community who cares about the Hudson River also knows they have an opportunity to be heard. So you have a few weeks, but if you're like most of us, if you don't do something right away, you might forget about it in the next coming weeks. So I would suggest that as you're watching this meeting, you're going on your computer and you're looking up Riverkeeper and you're looking up these storm management barriers. All right, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we move on to continuing business of the board.
There is none.
New business of the board.
There is none.
Visitor recognition. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board?
All right. I seeing none. Do we have a motion to, do we need executive session?
Advice of counsel.
Oh, no, okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Please join us next week, back at our regular day, time, and location, which next week will be back at Village Hall for our Village Board work session. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.